this event really came together a week ago. And you might ask why have a discussion like this. Just seeing what the turnout's been in a week, I think that kind of answers the question. Everyone's interested in the broader topic that we'll be talking about tonight, but we'll probably delve into various aspects of craft beer all over the map. But you know, I think this really stemmed from, there's just been a lot of conversation going on in social media, Reddit, Facebook, what have you, about is there a craft beer bubble? Is there too many breweries in Cincinnati? And what's really going on in the Cincinnati landscape? So we brought together, I think, in a week, a pretty awesome panel here. People who have a lot of cross-functional knowledge. And I'm going to pass the mic around and let each one of them introduce themselves and tell you why they're here.
All right, everybody, my name is Tom Aguero. I'm the owner and host of BrewMinds.com. My buddy Jesse is manning the camera and the computer for us, broadcasting this out on the internet live on Facebook. And yeah, this is going to be really fun. I'm excited and nervous. I think we're going to have an awesome conversation. So, pass it on.
My name is Brett Coleman Baker with Urban Artifact just down the road. I also like sour beer. I guess that's it. I work in the operations side of our business, just so you know.
My name is Sam Martz. I work with Cavalier Distributing. Obviously, I'm on the distribution end of things, so I work with a lot of different breweries, a lot of different suppliers. So obviously, I assume Tom thinks I have some knowledge on this subject, so hopefully we do have an awesome conversation this evening.
Frank Sita. I am the owner of the Lucky Turtle up the other roadway, one of the Central Corridor businesses, and I like bubbles in my beer.
I'm Roxanne Westendorf. I'm on the Brewers Association Board of Directors and also the chair of the American Homebrewers Association Governing Committee. And I like bubbles in my beer too, but I don't like bubble gum in my beer.
I'm Justin Heminger. I'm the Communications Director for the Ohio Craft Brewers Association. I've been on this job for about 9 months, and literally every other call I get from a reporter is, when is the bubble going to burst? So I was more than happy to come down here and disavow the knowledge of a bubble at all.
If you have any questions you want to ask the panel, just bring them up to me. They're at the table. I believe the group has been passing around some notepads and stuff that you can send stuff up. Or if you have a question, just come up to me and I'll pass it along to them. So, the thing we're here to talk about tonight is the beer bubble that people fear, and not the bubble in your beers or the bubble gum in your beers. The idea of market saturation, and if there are too many breweries making too much beer and just not enough people to drink it all. Historically, bubbles are a really bad thing for markets. I'm sure a lot of us remember 2008 when the housing bubble burst. And a few of us probably remember the late 90s when the brew pub bubble burst in the mid-90s, and a lot of brewers lost their job back then. So there's been an explosion in craft brewing over the past 10 years, and it's been ramping up a lot, and so if people are afraid, is the bubble going to burst? And I think we'll start off just giving everybody, maybe a minute or two or something to wish your if you have any quick ideas and thoughts on that, a yes, no, or a hell yes, or whoever wants to start.
Yeah, I know it's kind of come to a head down here because of the demise of Blank Slate. That's the reason why a lot of people are talking about it. Just at the statewide level, we've opened 50 breweries in the state of Ohio this year, and 4 have closed. 2 of them were consolidations. One was Blank Slate, and the other was via fire. So I'm not necessarily, it's a reflection of the current state, but no one's unafraid to get into this market right now. Everyone's talking about whether there's a bubble that is going to burst or not, but it's not scaring anybody off from opening breweries.
I I don't believe there's a bubble the way that we think of a bubble like the housing market or the brew pubs in 96. I do believe that a brewery has to be good. They have to be on their game. They have to have a solid business plan, and you'll hear more about that, I think, in a second. And you really need to pay attention to what you're doing. It is a business like anything else. If you're serving your people, if you have a solid business plan, if you have everything thought out, you should be okay. There will be exceptions. There will be closings. Nationally, there are 1,500 brewery pending that we know of. Most of the breweries that have opened recently are very similar to where we are here at Brink. They're very small, they're local. It's a very different model than some of the other things that people have seen. These are neighborhood bars and things like that. So I don't think there's a bubble, but I think you have to be good. You have to have a solid business plan. And there will be the occasional failures. But that doesn't mean, a failure does not mean there's a bubble. There are other forces at work for things like that too.
So I'll dovetail in on what she said from a business standpoint. I worked for the financial service industry for 20 plus years, and most of when consulting with businesses and whatnot, you could put beer on. It doesn't matter, label it whatever the business is. Every business should understand a recessionary period. Things are going to go up and down. Those are the things that solve that are understanding your margins, understanding your product, understanding your environment, having liquidity in your business that you can convert so that you can sustain paying people even, which we've seen that's been a problem. So, it's good business planning that will sustain a business even in a recessionary period. And a bubble can look like that, but when you see a business is falling off in a recessionary period, that's business is falling off in a recessionary period. That's not a bubble. You get at consumers, and you can probably talk about consumer from a distribution standpoint, but your consumers to saturation point can talk more about that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I tend to agree with a lot of what both of them just said. I mean, so working for a distributor, I've been with Cavalier for 3 years, so I've watched Mad Tree go from a pretty small local brewery to one of the bigger ones, and I watched growing pains with those guys. If any of you are fans of those guys, and in the last few years you went to your favorite place to get a six-pack and it wasn't there that week, it was because those guys were trying to keep up with demand. It seems like right now that demand is still there. My opinion may be a little skewed. My largest account is Jungle Gyms, so obviously I see tons of volume there, and I see everything from the wildest imports to the most boring local beer sells. So I mean, literally, people are buying it all right now. I can't speak for that at every single different bottle shop. I mean, obviously, places are different. Like Frank said, you have to understand your clientele, you have to understand the market, you have to understand what's selling for you and who's buying it. But my honest opinion, if there is a bubble, I don't see it yet. I feel like, these little breweries are opening up and all of them are booming. The bigger breweries are just getting bigger, so I mean, I hope the bubble keeps growing if there is one.
I think I'm going to take a little bit different viewpoint than a lot of the panelists here. On the local level, I don't think there's going to be an issue. No one has a problem of any place they're at, aside maybe Akron, Canton, where you think there's too many restaurants here. I hate this. No one thinks that. Now, maybe when you go to a place and you go to the Strip and you see a Chili's and an Applebee's and a DJIF, a steakhouse with the same crappy name that all the other steakhouses have, and you see all those places all over the country and you see they're flagging, well, maybe there's an issue there. And I see the same thing happening soon with regional and national breweries. These breweries are expanding like crazy because they've seen so much growth for so many years, decades really. And they're taking out massive loans, they're taking out huge expansion projects, and they're opening new markets. Well, you know what? You're going into these new markets where you have all these local breweries that are popping up. And if you're a consumer, why do I want to buy your IPA when you brew it in San Diego when I can get a great one here at Brink, or I can get another one at Mad Tree? Why would you buy something that's not local right now? And these breweries are hurting, and it shows. In the craft beer industry, everyone likes to say is strong and growing, but it's slowing, and it's going to keep slowing. And maybe we'll see a little uptick in the coming years, but I see that flattening off. Beer in general is dying. The 20 to 30 age group is not buying craft beer. They're researching on macros again. and wine. 40 plus isn't getting into craft beer. They're getting into wine, into spirits. It's at 30 to 40 that's really sustained craft beer for a long time, and you can only tap the same market for so long. So maybe not a bubble's gonna burst, but a market correction is inevitable.
I think I'm supposed to be a moderator, but I'm going to chime in here. I actually tend to agree more with Brett on this. Maybe it's just the inside, seeing it from this angle. Every single point he just said, I tend to agree with. I also think there is possibly an underlying cause to the expansion that people really haven't looked at, and that's really the extension of credit and how easy it is for certain upstarts to use other people's money to really outgrow themselves before they really get their feet wet and know what the market entails. I'm a bit of a student of economics and history and finance. I got into all that stuff. I read way too much on this, and I just kind of look at it from a standpoint of just economic history. The underlying fundamentals of a bubble is really an easing of credit and access to money, and also some things that legislators tend to do can spur growth that really isn't supported by any sort of underlying fundamental demand. And so I guess that's a segue here. I'll ask the first question. I think people kind of already answered it, but can each of you kind of tell me what you view a bubble as? You can start wherever. Yeah.
So again, from my perspective, like I said, it's a little bit skewed just because for those of you that aren't familiar with Cavalier, we sell, 100 plus national brands, probably somewhere in there, and then a whole lot of imports as well. So we've been picking up new breweries as the time has gone on, and don't get me wrong, from a volume point of view, just on a daily basis, getting emails about, this brewery, what we have in stock, what the new stuff is, weekly emails, all of that. Sometimes I'm just like, wow, like there are a lot of brewers out there. And again, as much as, you can look at it and say, hey, capitalism is what it is, and at some point the market's gonna crash. I don't know, I don't really feel like, I don't know, my definition of a bubble probably would be, when something goes terribly wrong, but like Brett just said, there would be market corrections perhaps because the consumers are going to decide what they want. When you go into the small local breweries or the small like neighborhood breweries like this, you're going to see, the ones that go in with guys who know what they're doing and have a great business plan, they're going to succeed. And the people that come in and think, oh, I'll just put liquid in a glass, it gets people drunk, it'll be what it'll be, I feel like those places will go out a lot quicker. So, again, a bubble, I don't know, it's really hard to define. It's really hard to define.
Frank, the finance man, doesn't want to chime in next.
I can go now. So what you were saying about the national side of things, I agree with that 110%. That when you bring in, it doesn't matter what we're doing here almost on a certain standpoint. That's our local Cincinnati. As far as all these brands coming in, again, I see so much. His company, I see so much new product coming in. It's a little distracting. I have to, at a point, from my business owner side, and looking at that, just understanding that bubble idea, just not to get away from it, but understanding that we have a certain amount of control over that even within our businesses about what we promote. We as business owners, we as salesmen, whatever, have some control over that, with the product we offer. Cavalier can push more local than they could push any national brand. You know that, you're under her umbrella, so there you go. So from a bubble standpoint, we talked, that was a lot of saturation talk right there. I agree with your classic definition of a bubble. That is, you can't argue with that. That's really it. There's really no other definition. How it applies though, is with the saturation point. I think that's the national piece coming in, is definitely a bigger problem. Maybe for them, we have some strong beer in Cincinnati, and that's what's going to stand the test of time is our breweries that are putting out consistently good product, that have a good business plan, that do, we were talking about loans and credit, that's why I say liquidity and cash. That battles all credit. I don't need credit when I have liquidity and cash and I make that plan. So that's the piece that businesses do have to understand to not put themselves in the bubble. There is plenty of businesses that survived way outside of all the bubbles that we've talked about. Okay, they made it, they came back. Why? Great business planning, not credit. Exactly. That's the end all be all for most of the bubbles. Those people that got into that.
I guess I would say, I mean, Andrew, you made great points about the classic definition of a bubble. And I think that, a little bit of credit is okay if it's solid credit. It's the over-leveraged types of things. When you're over-leveraged and you're trying to kind of run before you walk, or you don't have a good business plan, those places, as soon as there's pressure in the system, those places are going to have trouble. And that doesn't have anything to do with, a broader bubble necessarily. It has to do, again, with those business plans not being fundamental and sound.
I'm pretty much with everybody on acquiescing to the definition of what a bubble is. But the part that you brought up that we haven't really touched on at all is you brought up the idea of finite demand. We haven't talked about the fact that there's 85% of the beer market that does not belong to craft beer, 80% in Cincinnati alone. So what we're really talking about is a marketing exercise to get more millennials to drink craft beer, to get untapped markets to drink craft beer. That could be enough in and of itself to mitigate any bubble effects or market corrections.
The talk about millennials that are not drinking craft beer, I mean, I feel like it's just like anything. People grow into it. The first time you drink, especially some very flavorful beers, sour beers especially, people aren't, the first time they pick those up, I mean, I can speak from my personal experience, I'm sure other people are different, but first time I had a sour beer, I was like, oh my God, liquid wet socks, like why would they put that in a glass? And I believe I was drinking Cantillon. I was drinking Cantillon at Tom's house, and the best of the best, and I was just like, don't like it. I revisited it after my palate expanded a little bit, of course I did, but same can be said for the first time I had an IPA, Not every kid who's 23 has that developed of a palate. They're gonna go out and drink what's cheap at that age, and then once they get a little bit older, I think once people still get into that 30 to 40 age range, they're still gonna keep drinking craft beer. It's just where they get, And maybe I'm wrong, but that's the way it seems, for sure.
So I just want to interject real quick on something a few people said. So is craft beer another thing that millennials are killing? I mean, they just keep killing everything apparently, so.
I disagree with that.
But I think that goes back to the marketing too. I mean, so going in, you have to understand what are the millennials looking for, what do they want, what are they doing, how do you market to them? Maybe you shouldn't be marketing IPAs to millennials. Maybe you should be marketing something else that's going to be a better way for them to decide that craft beer is what they want. If they're drinking wine, maybe sour's a place to start millennials. I mean, so I think again, it does go back to marketing.
He gets beer for you.
and learning about the tools that you have for marketing and things like that. I do think that is important. There are resources. If you don't have it yourself, there are resources that can help you with marketing, and the VA is always trying to get some more research and to do some more learning on that. So hopefully you'll see more information about that as time goes on.
It's not our fault.
Says the millennial.
So where's the millennial cutoff? But I think that's an interesting point because I think craft beer maybe started a little bit as an outsider trend, and is it now so mainstream that it's not cool and they're diving into something else? And I personally don't think this was a fad. There is market preferences that have changed, but is that what's killing kind of the millennials from coming into the market?
I will say probably price point is what's going to start killing people coming into the market. It's not about, you can talk craft beer, they're not going to know what the crap you're talking about. Independent beer, they're not going to know what the crap you're talking about. They know beer, okay? Some people are astute to the commentary. A lot of us in here obviously are astute to the commentary. I can tell you that a lot of out there doesn't know what the hell we're talking about. What they're going to look at is when they get up on that price list. I see a few of my customers in here that I can tell you exactly how they read this price list. When they see the prices up there, they're not looking at that. They're looking at the IBUs, okay, or the ABV. Okay, they're looking at that, and then they're looking over at the price. And that price right there is exactly what is going to hurt or help in our markets in a general standpoint. The craft beer price point is way up here. Budweiser and blah is way down here, okay? And that right there is what's going to end up hurting some of the pieces for people to even get their beers out on the market. I can tell you from buying beer and having to put it on draft, when I look at what you might charge for X pour, when I get that keg and I look at what I have to charge to make my dollar on that same pour, and I'm like, yo, but we're only 5 minutes away. Great people are coming into my place, but if I have to charge $2 more than what you're charging for a 16-ounce pour, that makes it hard for me. Just it makes it hard for my customer in a context, you know.
Right.
That's not, I'm not looking at him like that's what it is. I'm just saying.
You are looking at me, but
I am looking at you. I am looking. I can look at you guys, but from the buyer to a brewer standpoint in the business side, I think price is what's going to really do some of that. And I have seen a lot of product that was one price. Now when it's getting under different distributors, is now dropping. And we're also seeing some of the craft brewers. I can get several craft kegs right now. It's some really solid pricing that is way below what I would expect out of anything. I'll even throw it out. Jackie O's Ricky. It's under Cav. For a lager, it is one of the most ridiculously solid prices on a keg. I'm not going to talk about it. Doesn't matter. But it's a ridiculously solid price. I can get that all day. You know.
you tell me that personally at one point. But actually, can I direct something real quick? A follow-up. Being a brewer, operations, is the price artificially high?
I can't speak for every brewery. All I can say is for us, given the fact how we started our business, which was through quite a large bank loan through the SBA and Huntington, our prices are extremely depressed. A large part of that is because we share a very strong conviction in that beer is for the people, it's a drink of the people, and we try to keep our prices as low as possible. Now that being the case, our prices are still about in line with any other craft brewery you're going to get, but we make sour beer and we use a crap ton of real fruit. So if you think about what's going into our beer, and then you look at these other beers coming out of breweries doing IPAs, pale ales, stouts, and our prices are the same, but we put in X amount much more work, I like to think that we're pretty damn reasonably priced. But it's easy, and you look at some of these breweries that are huge, and you still see that they're charging, I'm looking at you, Elysian, $12.99 a six-pack for Space Dust. Your margins are just stupid on that, and they are taking advantage of everyone in this room if you buy a six-pack of that at that price. That's it.
Well, I was just going to comment on what Frank said, and he was talking about pricing, and it kind of harkens back to what I said before about as you open yourself up into craft beer. I mean, speaking from my personal experience, there came a point when I could never go back. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I can drink a Miller High Life every now and then, but if I go somewhere and somebody's like, I got Bud Light, I'm just like, I'd just rather not drink. I mean, it has nothing to do with price. And,
But wait a minute, Sam. What if it's Keystone Light?
Oh, especially not Keystone. I've had too many horrible evenings. But no, the fact that and again, from a distributor aspect, and it's a little bit different, but we try to impart education onto our accounts so they can impart that onto, their consumers. So when I go in and I talk about my beers, and I tell them, the story behind it, or, we talk about pricing, or how, the ingredients or any of that stuff, that's stuff that I want them to soak up and I want them to tell. And again, it's some buyers, they're all about it. I mean, they gather their staff up and they'll teach everybody everything they learn from me. Other people in one ear, out the other. And I mean, it shows by how much craft beer they sell. Their craft beer kegs move a little bit slower. They move because craft beer is popular, but they could move faster if when somebody came in and ordered one thing and they said, well, how about you try this instead, and just give somebody a sample. I mean, that makes a huge difference. And again, I think education makes a big point in breaking people away from that whole quagmire of pricing. Because, like you said, once you become educated, you're not looking at that pricing over there. You're looking at the ABV. You're looking at the, what kind of beer it is, and then at the end of it, you look at the price, and you're like, okay, I have enough money, good. But but I don't know. That's just my opinion on it.
And we're seeing a lot more small breweries trying to kind of get into that macro space too, with traditional American lagers and pilsners to kind of like break into that. The college kid who drank Keystone Light or Natty Light for 4 years, or 5, or 6, however long he went to college.
Sure. For an undergrad.
On and off.
Good job. I'll call you Dr. Andy.
Thank you.
But yeah, like when you can give them a competitive product at a price point that doesn't break the math of looking at ABV divided by dollars. That's one way of breaking into getting that market.
Okay, so we got a Roxanne.
I was just saying that those beers, kind of those gateway beers, the entry beers that are being made by the breweries, though, when I see a good brewery, what I see is not making a light beer for the sake of making a light beer, but instead of like a standard American lager, they're making a Kolsch. Like WG is really kind of a Kolsch, right?
Yes.
So they're going to more traditional styles that have a little bit more flavor, trying to teach people that you can have something that's kind of familiar, but there's a little bit more to it, and it makes them more open to trying more things. But along with that has to come the education, not this is the closest thing you can get to a Bud Light. It's here's something I think you're going to like, and this is why.
So, just real quick what you said, I understand that the best-selling beer at Match 2.0 is Lift by an insanely wide margin. But we had a question from the audience that I want to get to. Greg Schmidt asked on Facebook, and I'll throw this open to anybody who wants to grab it. To what degree do you see InBev making a deeper impact on local craft beer/brewery scene in the next 3 to 5 years? As I stare at the ABI guy in the room.
Well, I guess the first thing is that in the latest announcement that the high end made with the consolidation of the employees, primarily the sales and marketing employees, they implied that the takeover spree was over. So, is that true or not? Well, we'll see. They implied that it's over. My biggest worry for the high end, the InBev high end, is what's happening at the non-beer bars. So the chain restaurants, the restaurants that don't have somebody who really understands the beer scene, where the high end beers have replaced most or all of the local brands. So it looks like there's a lot of choice. There's the illusion of choice because there's 5 or 6 brands and a bunch of beers from them. But the beers are all made by the same company. The money's all going to the same company. And it's displaced the local and regional taps that are on at those places. And that, frankly, worries me more than anything.
And speaking again from a distribution angle, dealing with a lot of the corporate bars where, like you said, they have their Heidelberg rep or somebody come in and say, oh, I see you're carrying X IPA that's local. I have Golden Road or I have blah blah blah, and they put it in there. I mean, again, I still feel like those kegs are moving really slow, and the education out there in the market makes a huge difference. So another great example, Kroger just did they've been running their Beer of the Month special, and Matt did theirs. Everything went smoothly. There wasn't a bunch of like backstock after everything was said and done. Golden Road just did one right after Matry, and I can tell you from walking in the back, there's still stacks of that stuff in the back, and people aren't buying it at that volume. So again, I think the education's out there. I mean, again, it's just a matter of bar owners, bloggers, everybody just keeping that message alive and making sure people know who owns what, where your money is going. It's just like when you make a donation to a charity or something. Do a little bit of research before you do it because you want to know where your money's going. Same thing with beer, I feel like.
So before I let you go in, just the who owns what, I just want to give a little shout out for the Independent Craft Brewery Seal. But almost half the breweries have signed up for it as of today, over 70% of the independent volume. Cincinnati's lagging a little, so we're hoping that a few more sign up. No, but Brink and Urban Artifact are there. And
Fibonacci, where are you guys from?
Fibonacci and Listerman Braxton and Cask, yeah. So we have a bunch of actually a lot of people who are here, CA. But that's a way for people to know this is an independent brewery. And I think that the more the local brewers get onto that bandwagon, it helps just having it in the door. And there are also places like Lucky Turtle's going to be able to put stuff in there that says this is an independent craft brewery. So retail establishments and restaurants can now use that for breweries that have signed up for the independent seal. But
So that does matter, Frank. I'm looking at you. So do you have better success with locals versus macros, or does independence matter?
Well, independence always matters. That's a whole other story.
Oh, yeah.
That's another story. I think locals definitely do well, for sure. I would say that when I have them on, people definitely recognize it. I note it on my menu that it's a local, so that makes it stand out immediately. As opposed to it being anything else, then it's just everything else. So whether it's whoever it's under that, that I have something with, whatever. The bottom line is, yes, I do show locals, and yes, people especially do know those. They know particular ones I carry. I got a lot of urban stuff on right now. Have had your stuff on, so that's all done really well and moves through. I think one of to the AB InBev piece though, and that general piece, the one great thing about Cincinnati, and I don't mean this in a disparaging way, is that we're a bunch of homers. And we love our stuff. I'll say stuff, usually I use a different word, but anyway, we love our stuff, okay? And that's the one thing that has made several businesses in Cincinnati be long-lasting. Even through their down times or up times or different things going on, some other people may experience this, is that people in Cincinnati love is usually what I say, but they love it. And if you have it and you're doing something well, now if you're not, they will for sure let you know that too. Because as much as we're homers about it, if you do it wrong, we will for sure let you know that also. I think everybody has seen the fires that have existed out on Faceplant out there. So that's one of the things as far as the AB InBev side or even the bubble side, that if you can harness that and understand that that your community, your environment, your people, if you're trying to get into more bigger distribution, Mad Trees, Right Guys, all that kind of jazz, different story. But for your home base, if you're good to your people and you put good product out and you manage your business in Cincinnati, you're gonna make it. Okay, you're gonna make it here. I'm not saying you're gonna get big, but you'll make it because that's the people of Cincinnati. That's how we are. In our local communities, even micro down to that. Because here's the first question: where did everybody go to high school? Right. We still talk about that. Okay. What neighborhoods you live in? It doesn't. I don't care how old you are. That's the first question we ask. We're homers. That's awesome. It's great for businesses.
No. Not in the way, not in another kind of way.
Give me 1 second. Whoever asked that question on Facebook, I kind of wanted to bring it back around to that and answer that a little more concisely. Command and conquer. That's what they're going to do. And it's coming. And it's up to the guilds, state and national, to prepare for that. They bought regional breweries strategically in every region in the United States. If you look at the map and you look at the breweries where they bought them, they have just one in every region. Now what you do in their position is you drop the prices, you saturate, you confuse the consumers, which is where the independent seal comes in, and you dominate that market and you push the little guys out. And that's where the locals continue to thrive. But if you're AB InBev right now, which is actually owned by 3G, which owns Kraft Heinz and a litany of other companies, they're Brazilian based and they live like it's the 80s still. They are gonna just come in and be ruthless. We need to be prepared. So get ready.
And it's not just on the store shelves either. I mean, they're talking about opening tap rooms in specific markets to compete with local breweries, and acting local and doing all the things that local tap rooms and local breweries do. That's coming. You're right, absolutely.
We got an audience question that's apparently going live. Well, so this is the ABI guy. If anybody has a rotten tomato, this is Dave Wiley.
Don't hate.
No, I'm not here to bother people. So I'm actually really enjoying the conversation because I am part of the high end. So you probably see me in the local Facebook groups getting yelled at. Being part of the high end. I wish we were dropping prices on everything. So far, I've seen like I have to fight to get discounts. They love expensive products. I mean, that's how they make margin on these things.
Goose Island prices change.
Goose Island, they've helped us in most markets. We have seen discounts, but a lot of times it's not just us, it's also wholesalers. So it's a three-tier system. All right, cool, nothing about some of them they will discount, that's true, but it's also based on performance. You talked about Elation, how that's really high. I mean, Constellation set that price ceiling on Ballast Point, so they're gonna see what they can get away with.
Ballast Point said that before Constellation bottom, and Constellation actually has recently come out in the past like 2 weeks and said that they overpaid for that. It hasn't performed on the national level they like. Prices have started to drop a little bit, and Constellation has said they're going to double down on the local markets, buying more local-only breweries and opening more local-only tap rooms. And I get where you're coming from, but like if you pull yourself out of like the day-to-day and you look at it from a strategic standpoint, and you look at it from a company where I need to make profit quarter over quarter for my shareholders, and you cut jobs, now you're out of jobs. Okay, now what do you do next? Well, you got to get your margin up somehow. So how do you increase margin? Well, you cut costs on product. That's why Budweiser started buying like cracked rice and second-grade rice and stuff for their product, because it's cheaper than buying the high-end stuff. Boom, saving margin there. Well, how do you keep saving margin? Well, you get rid of your competition and you increase your volumes. Well, how do you get rid of your competitions? Well, maybe you take it on the chin for a quarter, lower your prices, push these other breweries out, and then now you're selling double what you were before. So I respect everything you're saying, and I understand that, and I understand the fight that you go through on a day-to-day basis, but from a high level, like that only makes sense strategically, and it doesn't make sense any other way. You wouldn't make all these investments if you didn't want to return on it.
Yeah, I think from an ABI standpoint, they're doing this to diversify. I don't think this is, they own, what, 15%, 10% of the craft. I mean, I'm not looking at on-premise. I'm all off-premise. So I'm 100% retail, but we have such a low piece of the pie, I think, for them. They realize they see the writing on the wall for the macros. Though there is some correction now, like it was said, that we are seeing people go back to some of the macros just because you're drinking a lot of craft beer, eventually calories become a concern. But everything that I hear internally is that it's all about making sure that there is a diversified portfolio. So I'm here to field, I'll field questions. I don't want to divert this panel because I'm here to listen. I think it's fascinating. Really, the question for me that I came to try to hear your perspectives on is we're seeing a lot of stagnation in retail. We're seeing a lot of volume now turning flat. And I know that there will always be a lot of strong on-premise market. There's going to be a lot of people that are always going to come to these places. And these places should always exist in our communities. I think they're great community gathering points. And I've always been a fan of Cincinnati's craft beer scene, but you're talking about the financial piece earlier. And I'm worried about people that have invested heavily in a lot of equipment, a lot of tap rooms. Now, their model is based on expansion. And when you're seeing not just a craft bubble in Cincinnati, but you're seeing nationally, where you're seeing these pop up everywhere, at what point are people's tap rooms and their breweries that they're opening that are predicated on national expansion? I mean, even we're getting told by national retailers that national expansion is done. That's the message we're hearing is, listen, you're local, you have to play local now, that game is over. So what concerns me is that you're seeing a lot of people make multi-million-dollar investments based on bank loans that now have to be repaid. And if you can't repay that based on your local audience in an increasingly competitive market, you have to differentiate yourself. And you have national players like the company I work for that are bringing, you want a West Coast IPA? I'll bring it from the West Coast. So now you have to compete with something from another market. I can bring you the best thing in my portfolio from anywhere in the United States. So you're seeing that pressure. That is a huge pressure that exists in the market. And if you have to pay those bank loans and it's based on double-digit sales growth where retail is now stagnant. Like, how does that happen? Like, that to me is the biggest threat to local craft, is people that have overinvested in growing their supply, or growing their capability to grow, and then the demand's just not there. So that's when I look at it from an analytics standpoint, that's what concerns me about a craft bubble. It's, are we going to get the growth that we need to pay these loans back? And if we don't, all right, here you go.
Yeah, thank you. That was really good insight, and I'm sorry, I wish I would have thought to invite you to the panel already. I made a failure on that. I wanted to jump tracks a little bit, and I think this question is mainly for probably Frank and Sam, and it's kind of, everybody's keyed on it a little bit, but I wonder if there are too many brands in the market and too many breweries making too many beers, and also if the ticker culture of untapped and trying new things is impacting overall beer sales.
I'm going to say one of the most stupidest things that you're ever going to want to hear here. I think that I would prefer to see only Ohio brands being sold to me, period. I love Stone. I love all kinds of crazy, hey, here's the thing. If I want to do that, I'm going to go get on the internet and I'll go get the beer. Okay, I don't give a crap about it past that. We have so much great beer happening. I mean, in Cincinnati, we have a lot of great beer. Some not so great beer, fair enough, that's the way it goes. We have a lot of good beer going on. In Ohio, we have a lot of great beer happening there too, okay? And we have a lot of up and coming stuff that's happening right here in Cincinnati. I'll pick out Urban, honestly. I got 3 beers on tap right now. All that shit's delicious. Bottom line, so, and that's come from ways of different points when I've tried those beers. I'm not harping on it from the past, I'm telling you right now, delicious. And that's come some ways from what it was before. So that's what's gonna happen. Dan Listerman's sitting right here. Listerman's been blowing it up with their beers. They've been doing nice can releases, got that hype going, it's going. So, like I said, it's here in Cincinnati, things are happening. Things are happening in the state. If I saw only Ohio beer, I would not shed a tear, not one single tear. I'd be more than happy with it. I wouldn't have to look at all the bullshit brands that are out there.
That being said,
Sorry, Sam, my bad.
definitely buy more than just Ohio brands. That's just my take on it. No, I mean, Tom, again, the question is, do we think there's too many brands out there? Is it causing market confusion and that sort of thing? Again, maybe I live in a bubble, speaking of bubbles, but having Jungle Gyms is one of my accounts. I feel like everything that we bring in and a lot of the new stuff that we brought in has done very well. I mean, I don't know if it's because Cavalier is very picky about who they bring into their portfolio. Maybe I'm sure they do a ton of research on each brewery before they even go that direction. Maybe it's because they're bringing in these top quality brands. But I don't know. I feel like everything I brought in, maybe it's just because Jungle Gyms.
Sorry, keep on.
Maybe it's just because it's a Jungle Gyms. I don't know. I just feel like everything's moving. But again, a lot of people go to Jungle Gyms. That's a much larger gathering point. So again, maybe I live in my own little bubble. But and I can't speak for some of the other distributors, but I don't have any brands that are stagnant on the shelf. So, for as many as we have, I mean, that's a good thing. I certainly have no complaints.
Anyway, I was going to read an audience question if I can here. So we talked about the ability of the city to sustain more neighborhood breweries that are interested in creating, good beer and a good community space, as opposed to craft breweries interested in just jumping in big time and becoming a regional player. So this is more of a statement. I don't see a question at the end of this, but I think it's maybe a good, a statement worth some comments on it. Is there a particular type of model that obviously is going to work here? Is it now all local?
Right. Well, I don't think we'll ever be all local, no matter how much you might want it to be. But what I would say is that one of the things, and it's actually, you see it around the country, but we're seeing it really big in Cincinnati, is the revitalization of areas because of the local craft brewery. Brink here with College Hill. and the things that by being here, it's doing for the neighborhood. Urban Artifact with the rehabbing of the church and kind of coming into that north side scene. There are a few others of those. I mean, you look at downtown, you look at Newport when they let you in, when they finally decide they're going to actually let you into Newport. Based on they're a little worried about their history there, I think. But you look at like the small local craft breweries, they're going into old buildings that have been abandoned, they might have been historical, they're revitalizing the entire neighborhood. It's not just...
You have that on Hamilton.
I know. Yeah, but it's not just a brewery going in, it's a brewery going in and making a difference in a neighborhood. And I think that's one of the things that especially a lot of the newer breweries are doing. We've got a lot of that going on in Cincinnati. It's not just, oh, like, let me pick this, like, cool neighborhood and be there. Let's make this neighborhood something. So I think that's a big deal.
Yeah, just a couple of notes about the small tap room. Like most of the growth in this industry is happening in places like this and in places that have never had a craft beer scene. Like the number of small towns in Ohio that now have craft breweries that have become focal points of their communities, like Coshocton, Mariahstein, just trying to think of Monroe.
Middletown.
Sure.
Did you just curse at me?
Sorry, Coshocton, excuse me. That's where we're seeing the growth in the market, and that's also like kind of going back to the idea of how can we mitigate the bubble effect by bringing in more craft beer customers? Like we're hitting people who've never had it before. We're bringing craft beer to people who have only drank Bud Light, Miller Lite, and giving them that opportunity to try something new and to open up to.
I think while it's a statement in there, I think the question revolves around local, like small, versus guys that are getting regional. Matt Tree's gone regional with the build-up, right? So rank guys, such and so forth. So I think what the further part of that question is, though, is even some of the guys that are small that are now trying to distribute, trying to get their cans out there, having can releases, stuff like that. But that gets attached to the bubble idea. You start to ask the question here. Some of those, I don't want to name any names, but the bottom line, we can look at, what's out there, and this is anywhere. Are those small guys, have they overextended themselves within their business plan? Okay, and so, fine as a local tap room where they're at, but then, when you want to start talking about can releases and doing certain things, I think it begs the question, I'm not saying they're right or wrong, or it's one way or the other, but it begs the question, have they overextended themselves? Do they have the sales force to get their beers out to tap rooms? Sending an email out for me just doesn't cut it. Like if you're not hustling in there and you don't come see me, then you don't get sales. An email doesn't cut it. So, but I think that's a little bit, I think that question is talking about the overextension of guys that thinking they're going bigger than they're really going to go big. And that's the bubble. That creates the bubble for them,
Hold on, guys. This is a new mixer board for me, and I have no audio-visual experience, so we're still trying to get it at the right volume without feedback. So, how are we looking here? Getting better? Getting better? Okay. Nobody cough into the mic, or we're gonna get that awful hiss.
Okay, Roxanne, you want to say something?
Oh, no, I was just getting a beer.
Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2.
Some of the mics may be a little hot. Turn yours on there, Frank.
Check.
You're on the weak mic.
Yeah, that should be good. I got a voice.
Okay.
Not in a good way. That was not in a good way.
You don't need Sam or Frank to allow us to play. You don't have to talk a lot.
Everyone can hear me, obviously.
So that was an audience question. Just curious, the guy or the girl that left that question, was that a representation of your statement? Okay, cool.
Okay, let's try that and see if we can. Okay.
I asked first.
Sorry for the delay.
There's still some here, right?
So, we were just talking about the feedback that we're getting on the microphone. I should know this by now. So is even our local market so regionalized that there are different areas of town that you can support multiple breweries? And I'm going to ask a direct question of my buddy Brett here, and he can defer. But there's a new brewery opening across the street from you pretty soon. Is there a certain saturation point? Is that really just kind of neighborhood by neighborhood? Or is there space for all of us to exist in each neighborhood?
Yes and no. It depends. So all of the things. As per North Side, what's happening in our neighborhood, there is a brewery opening right across the street from us, and I guess before I get into that, to touch on Andy's second half of the question is it's really just it's neighborhood dependent and it's brewery dependent. Like if someone's opening up a brewery called Rabbit Hash Brewery, and then right across the street from you're opening up a brewery called Habit Rash Brewery, and you guys are all doing the exact same beers and you have really similar branding and everything, yeah, there's probably going to be an issue. But if there's enough people to support it, who cares? So it really just depends on the neighborhood. Now, I think what's more important of a takeaway from this, and why, people like to say that the craft beer community is very lovey-dovey and there's no animosity or competitive nature or any of that. It's all a facade. It's great for the consumer. And on some level, it's there. Like, the community's there and we love each other. But, at the end of the day, like, we are competitors, but we're all competing kind of independently, but indirectly against each other. So, people would be lying. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm not worried at all, at least locally, because we do something so uniquely different than any other brewery anywhere near Cincinnati that we got no problem. And I think that is honestly a big benefit for us if this so-called bubble or whatever the heck it is ever bursts. I feel pretty insulated as a brewery owner because we're doing something that I don't need to worry about anyone else locally doing. And there's some national breweries that are starting to get into these sour beer thing and doing some other stuff, but you know what? Our quality of product and our focus is such that I don't need to worry about someone like Sierra Nevada, who has, for the longest time, only focused on hoppy beers, trying to get in and beat me at what we do best every single day. So it's about market differentiation, finding a niche, growing in that, and exploiting it. It's not about trying to be a jack of all trades. It's about establishing yourself as the expert in X, Y, or Z. Not A, B, C, D through Z, but one of those letters. If that made any sense. It's rambling. Anyway, I'm very happy for Rabbit Hash, and if anyone knows the Pimps, please send my regards to them because they're fantastic.
There was a time when one of the smartest business investments you could make was to open a coffee shop across the street from Starbucks, because you were just kind of taking over from their own volume. Not so much in this industry, obviously, but Brett made a great point that I think a lot more breweries need to think about how they differentiate themselves in this market, as opposed to just being the local brewery in the neighborhood.
Dave, you got something else you want to say?
Mr. Dan Listerman is in the house, and we'd like to hear his his voice here for a second. The Godfather.
I didn't do it. I was saying, excuse me, I was saying that that's a double-edged sword when somebody moves next to you. That's, that, you know, your knee-jerk reaction is, oh crap, more competition. But from you're establishing a brewery district. You're making your area more attractive to brewery tourists. They're going to, so there's a double-edged sword. Which one is sharper now, I can't say. But it's not all, you know, bad.
I think that's a good point, because I think that works in some areas of town, such as OTR, where you already have an established regional draw. You know, what's the number that they can support down in OTR? It's going to be greater than if somebody moves into that building across the street from us here in College Hill. Northside's already got a pretty vibrant, you know, entertainment district. They're drawing people down there. I can see that. I mean, so again, you know, I was on, give myself a shout out, Channel 19 News, you know, and that was my 5 minutes of fame, or 3 minutes, but 15 seconds, more accurately. But that was really kind of one of the concepts that I touched on, that I don't even think you can look at it even in a Cincinnati standpoint. I mean, you have to really analyze it neighborhood by neighborhood and see what each neighborhood can support, if that is your model. And I think that is where the model's going. I think Roxanne presented some good data here that I just read 2 hours ago, but you know, it was kind of intuitive that some of the decline that we're seeing in just the craft beer numbers from like a distribution standpoint and all the macro numbers suggest that it's slowing down, but that doesn't really account for the neighborhood craft brewery and what they're doing. That's unreported data. I mean, the Brewers Association isn't calling us up and asking us how many barrels we're doing and what we're selling. But yeah, I think, you know, what's interesting about craft brewery, and to circle back to something Brett said, we are all competitors, and what I like about this industry, we're all competitors, but it's a friendly competition. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. It's something I've never experienced in any other for-profit business anywhere else. You know, yeah, I mean, we want our beers to be the best and, you know, people to give us accolades and to do well, but, you know, we all hang out together. We all kind of, you know, just kind of congregate and talk about the industry, and Brett's doing something really interesting. I think it's actually kind of Michael Stewart. I don't know, I got a late invite, but I'm glad I was included with the brewery industry night, and just how we're looking for ways to support one another. So that's really unique in craft beer as opposed to any other industry I've ever worked in.
I think one of the pieces to what Brett was saying about having another business across the street, you know, you guys do your thing, so no matter what the businesses are, it doesn't matter. Even if you guys do a similar thing, fair enough. I think the important piece for our industry, the people that are supporting independent craft brewing and that standpoint, a local business, regardless of we haven't talked about beer, is that you the people, you make the call, right? We can sit up here and da-da-da all day about the money we spend, the things we think about, and all the stuff we do. All right, we're bringing all the beers for you, and you have to be able to, you have to support these businesses on any level. You have that choice. You should support the ones you like. You look at the people who are sitting around. A lot of you folks here are Central Corridor businesses and ideas. All right, so I say that because if you're on the east side, we're in the middle, and if you're on the west side, we're still in the middle. So I think we've all deigned to call ourselves the Central Corridor, and we leave everybody else alone, I guess. But you know, you have a choice from down here at Urban all the way up to Brink, come up to my place, keep on going up to Swine City up in Fairfield. All right, I think it's all the way, that's the Central Corridor all the way up through these businesses, okay? And I'm not leaving anybody out. Fibonacci right up there in Mount Healthy. So, you know, everybody up through this way here, you know, you guys live here. Some of you live here, okay? There's other areas, but we are located in our areas, and you can support all those businesses. Make your way around, give them a drink, have a good time, you know?
Yeah, Dan kind of touched on the idea of having a district or promoting beer tourism. One of the things that we do with the Ohio Craft Brewers Association, we have an app called Ohio on Tap. I'm going to plug for it real hard right now. if you haven't downloaded this app, basically we give free stuff to you for going to Ohio craft breweries. It's as just an incentive to go out to these tap rooms and check out what everybody's doing. Get around your neighborhoods, get around your cities, get around the state, and see what everybody's doing. Cincinnati, you guys have 2 tour bus companies that is doing 4 tour bus companies that's doing this for you. Two that I know of.
Only 2 that we should care about: Craft Connection and Cincy Brew Bus. Don't
Yeah,
spell together.
and Craft Connection is about to launch a city passport program similar to what we're doing with our app. They're gonna have little booklets where you can go from place to place, get your passport stamped, and get stuff for going around and drinking beer, which is a pretty great reward. But that idea of beer tourism, like actually getting around and seeing what everybody's doing, I think it's invaluable when you're trying to decide like how you want to spend your dollar and what businesses you want to support. You got to make the educated choice.
All right, so I have a slightly loaded hot potato question for anybody who wants to take it. We have over 40 breweries in Cincinnati right now, and I will honestly say that some of them suck ass. Some of them are great. A lot of them are great. But for anybody who wants to take this on, what does lower quality, how is lower quality beer impacting the bubble or market saturated? How is lower quality beer impacting the market?
Man, I don't even know what to say about that. Like, you don't drink it. Here's the bottom line. You have a choice. It's your dollar that drives that. That's going to burst their bubble because they spent too much money, they have shitty beer, and you're not going to drink it, and therefore their bubble will burst. Not the Cincy beer bubble, okay? They're a byproduct of bad business. They're a byproduct of all the things that Roxanne can point out, a bajillion things right here on her list, which she'll tell you about, that can help a craft beer brewery make better beer and be a good business and make a quality product. If they're not, don't support them. They'll close. We'll forget about them, and then we can talk about drinking good beer from some people that are sitting right here in this room.
What a great segue. No, seriously, I think most people are willing to give someone a second chance. They're not necessarily willing to give somebody a third, fourth, fifth, and sixth chance. I do think that if you encounter someone that has beer that's problematic, it's okay to tell them that in a nice way. You don't go, all right, man, this beer sucks. But what you do is you say, hey, I think you've got a problem. If you're an educated consumer, if you know your flavor profiles and things like that, you can let them know that, hey, I think there's an issue. There are a ton of resources at the BA level for quality, yeast, malt, hops, safety in your brewery, draft beer quality, line cleaning, things that you can go to the, sometimes it's not the brewery, but it's the establishment. Now, I'm sure he does his line cleaning perfectly, no doubt about that. But there are other places.
I got my chart right next to the taps.
But there are other places that don't. So, learning and understanding that, or saying like, hey, your beer was on tap there and it didn't taste right. So that the brewery can go check it out. Things like that. But there are a ton of resources. But feel free to tell the people at the brewery, hey, I think there's a problem. Be ready to tell them what you think that problem is. Like, hey, not like, oh, you're doing this wrong, but hey, maybe there's like a little bit of like diacetyl in the style. There shouldn't be there. That's okay. That's perfectly legitimate to do. Give breweries a second chance. Third, fourth, and fifth chances, everybody can have a bad day. Everybody can have a bad beer. It should not be a regular thing.
Well, quick follow-up to that, Roxanne, being that, that you have probably the best palate in Cincinnati.
No, actually,
Okay, well, we like to say that around. Oh, wait, hang on. Let's get Dan to chime in before I...
Unless you lived through the 90s, you have no idea what bad beer tastes like. The beer today is so much better than that stuff they made back then. I have to think hard to find somebody who makes beer at that horrible level. If you one, I've got some directions for you, but otherwise, only one, and it's not close to here. Really, the beer today is so much better than it was back in those days. You went to a brew pub those days, and you had a bad beer, and you didn't blink. That was okay. Today, you don't see that. It's much better.
And to his point, that's a great thing is that we do have much better beer, and so the standards have risen. We have breweries that are not even, I mean, the beer back then, there wasn't but like 5 styles you could find everywhere. Now we got a whole brewery that does nothing but sours and fantastic shit, and it's like, it's just a whole nother level. So, you know, you can still rank what you're drinking out there. You can still understand, you can educate yourself. That's about educating yourself, but for those of us in the industry, you can know what things taste like and when things are not correct. And you have to understand that.
And there's a difference between, this isn't my preferred IPA, because IPA, like, you know, you've got hop preferences, you have malt preferences, things like that, and there's a problem with this beer. So, you know, in this room, you probably have 20 different favorite IPAs, and that's okay, maybe more. That's okay. It may not be your favorite IPA to place, but when you have something that has butterscotch, diacetyl in it, that's a problem. You know, you should never have that buttery butterscotch flavor in an IPA. If you encounter that, let somebody know. Maybe it's a bad keg, maybe it's a problem with that batch, maybe it's a systemic problem. If nobody says anything, they don't necessarily know. And sometimes you can be blind to a flavor. Diacetyl is one that you can be blind to.
I have 100% diacetyl.
Or you must be a super sensitive.
Butter popcorn all for everybody.
But you know, it's okay to let people know. But you shouldn't say this beer sucks if it's not my favorite IPA because I don't like this hop. That's a different story. So
That's ignorance.
And don't think either, I mean, again, when what they're talking about with your local neighborhood breweries, I mean, obviously, they're going to be a lot more responsive, but even on a national level, if you're somewhere and you taste a beer from Dogfish Head that doesn't taste right, tell the bartender, go tell the manager, they tell the distributor. We come pick up the keg and replace it with something that's drinkable. And, I mean, again, be vocal about it. You guys are quality control. I mean, that's exactly how it boils down.
All right, so Dave from AP had another question for the panel, so I'll pass it over to him.
So, devil's advocate here. So, no, it's not a deep question, just devil's advocate.
I like that he's like out of brain too.
This is just on the same note we're talking about. Do you think that with all the competition coming in from national craft and the multi-million-dollar labs that they're putting in and quality control in these places, do you think it's adding pressure to actually keep local breweries honest with their quality? Do you think it's driving quality up? Do you think it's driving pressure for innovation? Because I think as just a beer lover in general, I think the more quality we see in the industry and the more variety we see, local, national, whatever level, I think it's a good thing. So that's what I'd go back to.
And I absolutely agree with that. I mean, if you go into, and I'm sure some people here have toured some of the largest breweries in the nation. One of the most impressive ones, and not to ring Dogfish's bell twice here, but I went to Dogfish, and they have a sensory panel room. They have a lab. They go, and a lot of these breweries do. I mean, they go above and beyond to make sure that these beers that are coming out are top quality. And again, obviously, just like anything else, something slips through the cracks. So going back on making sure that if something doesn't taste right, tell somebody, because it makes a huge difference.
I think on that note, for somebody like Dogfish, a big national brand, they got a fair amount of cheese flowing through, so they're going to be able to spend their money. Mad Tree has done their fair share. I won't speak to Urban and how they do their thing. They're on a different page a little bit, but Mad Tree, they've done things that they've expanded. Rheingeist has done their thing. But for the local brewery, I'm sure, probably somewhere back, maybe in a corner, Brink has got a lab.
We have a microscope.
Right. So here's the thing. So I don't disagree with
We
the
have
fact that
Kelly and his definitive palate.
Right, yes,
So
we
that's
have
our-
a high level of taste testing going on. So I think that yes, for sure that within certain models there are trends and ideas within the businesses that they will emulate and continue down as they can. it does not require you to do that. It's great that people have labs and they're super testing their stuff and doing different things. Okay, look, we're talking about us drinking this beer right here. We're going down like the sidewalk here and we're just gonna go in our neighborhood. Yeah, we don't give a crap about all that. Okay, and I'm gonna tell you right now, you shouldn't give a crap about it too much on this level. If you do, you're probably gonna overextend yourself, you're gonna spend too much money, or you're gonna do a bunch of stuff that you don't need to do to put out good quality beer right here in your neighborhood on the small local level.
And that's why what Roxanne said a moment ago, I agree with, as far as letting people know, crap, I lost my train of thought. No, so yeah, I mean, literally just making sure that that the quality is there and telling people when something doesn't taste right, it makes a huge difference.
One of the other things that happens, especially with the small local breweries, is we have a huge homebrew community in Cincinnati, and we have a lot of BJCP judges at various levels. And I've come in here, or been places with Andrew and Kelly, and we've talked about the beers. We've gone, and say, hey, I want you to taste this. I'm worried about this, things like that. So, the great thing about being a neighborhood bar, being a local bar, knowing the homebrew community, knowing the people who have, understand taste profiles, they don't do this in a vacuum. They'll talk to people. They will solicit input, not just take it, but actually actively solicit input to understand, I think there might be an issue, or I'm worried about this, or what do you think about blending this flavor? And getting some input from the community that has additional training and additional palate. And homebrewers are more than happy to help with this.
That's very true. In our lab is our customers. We want honest opinions. But kind of circle back, I got kind of a statement and then a question that's a follow-up. I'm sorry, I forget your name. Dave. I think that maybe it's not driving quality as much yet, because I still think there's other pressures that are forcing more and more, again, entrance into the markets, that they just think it's maybe a cash grab or something that they can get into. But I do think it's spawning a lot of innovation. People are trying to find the next big thing to do with beer. Everyone's, beer's like music. Everyone plays the same 4 chords, but can you change the intonation or change the chord voicing or something and make it a little bit different and make it your own? So I think there's a lot of innovation that's driven by all the market entrants and even maybe InBev and some of the consolidation going on there. But something that I did want to ask, and we kind of touched on it here, is Cincinnati critical enough of the beer quality? Are they sophisticated enough that they know what diacetyl is, that they know what acetaldehyde is, they know what DMS is, they know what,
So going back to what
I want to answer that for everyone at home. It is a resounding no.
Just real quick. Critical, yes. Education's a hard thing to say on.
But I don't like that. It's not critical.
Right. Critical is one thing. Everybody can have their opinion about stuff, and everybody can be as critical as they want to be about it. That's your own personal choice. Fair enough. If you want to talk about educated taste and understanding that, okay, well then some people should probably dial it down a notch. Okay, and that's fair enough. But there is, when you want to start talking about taste and understanding that, yeah, open up your biology books and your science books and talk about taste buds and understand things and where your palate is and how that works, how your nasal system works, what you're smelling. Yeah, let's not talk about that, okay? If you want to talk about it, that's fine, but let's go there and then we can talk about it in an intelligent, educated way. But educate yourselves. If you want to just not like a beer because you don't like it, fair enough. If you've at least gone to off-flavor testing or education on that level, okay, also fair enough. We have a lot of judges, she said, we have a lot of homebrew community. So we have people, but it is not everybody. And everybody shouldn't take on that mantle for themselves. For those of us that have done judging, that do taste panels, that have done that stuff, okay, well, we can talk about it in that way and understand it. If you don't like it, you're getting a little something off, absolutely say that. Tell people about that. But don't hold it on your shoulders like you wear it, like a champ.
I have 2 There you go. Works better if it's on. I have two quick responses to that. One is flippant, and that is opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one. And the other one is, I think that speaks to a larger issue, is that we as a culture have stopped listening to critics. We don't even understand what criticism is. Like when people hear, and I think my generation is partly to blame for this, but when you hear the word criticism, all people think nowadays is immediately somebody's saying something bad about me. When real criticism, like back in the days when we used to have like music critics and theater critics and food critics, is you had someone who had experience or knowledge of a topic who could speak intelligently about it and offer a good, experienced and expertise-based, that's a critique, like a logic-based argument about that product. We don't have that anymore. Now we're in the age of like Untapped or all those other apps that you can just rate something and not know anything about it. It drives me insane because it has resulted in the dumbing down of our overall consumer experience.
One example I'd like to give is I was at a place, it was my first time there, and I had a beer, and the flavor of the beer was great. It's a beer that was supposed to be really highly carbonated, and it was almost flat. Andrew is...
I know exactly who you're talking about.
So he was there and saw me talking to the bartender, and I went up and I said, hey, the flavor of this beer is really good, but this style is supposed to be really, really highly carbonated, and it's really low carbonated. And he said, well, it's the end of the keg, and I'm like, wrong answer, because at the end of the keg things usually go the other way. Because you get a lot more CO2 going in and a lot less beer, so the carbonation can get really high. So it was actually the opposite of what I would have expected. I gave him my card, and, hoped that he would give it to the owners and the brewers and stuff, and I never heard from them. But that was the type of thing where I was trying to do something in a very positive way. Hey, good flavor, but there's something missing here, and this could be a great beer if this was fixed. So, that's kind of constructive criticism. It's giving somebody something very concrete. I know the style. I know what it was supposed to be, so I could actually provide some helpful information.
One of the best things that the PA does and that the Ohio Craft Brewers Association does is offer those kind of resources to brewers, through education, through our conferences, through all the resources that are available online, and just by connecting brewers to each other to make sure that they're making the best possible beer they can make. Because and when we're getting back to the heart of this conversation, talking about whether or not we're in a craft beer bubble, we want all these breweries to survive. We want there to be an abundance of craft beer to be out there for you to choose from. But we don't want you to have to drink bad beer. We want you to have the best possible beer you can have.
So where's Jane at? Come on, you got a question? Jesse told me, come on up.
This is Jane from Marty's Hops and Vines, who doesn't know. Great wine and craft beer bar, great kitchen, and here's the mic.
I hate talking into microphones. Hi. I'm sitting here with Mark, who went to go pick up his food, so he's not here. But Mark works for a brewery that is a self-distributor, and I also deal with distributors all over town. And I'm not gonna lie, it's really easy talking to one person about 10 breweries than it is talking to 10 different self-distributing breweries. So, because I want to focus more on putting local beers on tap, I've got to talk to a lot more people. It's a lot more legwork, it's a lot more of my time. But it's important. So where do you guys see, you rep so many breweries, and I don't think we have a self-distributor on this panel, but what do you think is, you're right, yes, sorry, Andy. You're right there. What do you think is the future for craft beer and getting the education out into the bars? And is it educating the distributors? Is it self-distributing? Is it both? Because I see pros and cons to both.
Can I start?
Yeah.
I think this is more, I'm gonna answer your question with a question, sort of annoying things. what do you really look for in terms, you're looking at ease of product differentiation, somebody to come in there or no?
I'm just saying it takes more time.
Sure.
Which is worth it if it's good beer. But we're a small place.
Yeah.
Burgers gonna be completely different.
I think the more and more you get the small local neighborhood breweries who are taking over aspects of the market share, you're kind of, we're picking each other off in a way, I think. We're not taking as much market share anymore from InBev and the big macros as we're just taking it from Sierra Nevada or Sam Adams or, you know, some of the more established craft beer. No, Frank? No?
I don't disagree with that. You might be taking it from there too. I think in the end, from strictly a buyer standpoint, okay, you know, every buyer is going to look at several things. Number one, that's prevalent to their business, just what they're doing. You got 6 taps, I got 24. Okay, so that makes a difference right there in our conversation immediately, even though we're all running craft. Okay. Price points, I also do a lot of liquor. You do some, but I've got 100 some bottles of liquor, so I have a whole other business. Right. In my context, okay. So as far as my beer buying goes, though, and in that piece of the, you know, local, I still think price point's going to matter on some level as far as hustling it out there. We can all carry all the local we want, but getting to all the people. Understanding all the distributors that are coming in there, because literally in the end you're almost going to have to tell your distributor, just don't come in here or don't talk to me about something. That's a buyer. That's what we have to deal with on that point. From you trying to get it out there and other people trying to get it out there, it's what's going to cut it for you, an email? Or do they have to come in? Do they have to text you? You know, what's it going to matter for you in that business? That's the question that we have to ask, and they have to know.
Yeah,
They have to tell them.
When I get an email every week that says, here's what we have on tap, that's useful to me. Because otherwise, when I've got that like morning to buy all my beer for the week, I'm gonna forget that I'm not gonna forget you guys exist because I live here, but I'm gonna forget that some of the other breweries exist in that moment when I'm picking my beer. And then they come in later in the day and I go, oh crap, I don't have any room for you. So, but tasting is important too because there's so much competition now. And I can't bring every single thing in, especially in package, because I just don't have the shelf space. I need to taste it and it needs to be good. That's where I think people need to differentiate themselves.
I'm going to put a plug in for Jane because she's taking our beer judge certification class right now. So she is going through making sure she understands the styles, what they're supposed to be, and also what the flaws are.
We drink a lot of beer here and discuss it. I think part of the answer, I'm going to chime in here, you know, the smaller breweries where I was going with that, like we can't produce the volume needed to go with the distributor. So you're going to have to deal with us individually if you want to get us on tap because we can't get into contracts with distributors. We can't guarantee that we can produce X amount and push it out the door. And the other question I've always had, and you know, Brett, are you with the distributor? Oh, Cavalier, all right, so maybe, I mean, how much selling are you actually doing for your breweries? Or are you having to go out and actually make the contacts? I mean, you have a sales force? We can't afford to do that.
I can answer that for you on some level. So these guys will step on my place in between things. You know, the Cavalier guys are hustling that product. Fortunately, they have a product to hustle, and then it's worth buying, so that makes it easier on some level within the picking of things. These guys step up there, so you know, it is about, I will say for an independent person, depending on the business and your locale and all those things, it's about if you get out there and hustle and whatever they want to see, whatever I want to see each individual business. You may not, I see you guys up there, you may not see me directly, but hey, you know how to get me, and you exercise that right to go ahead and get me, and then we make business happen.
Holler at your boy.
Holler at your boy, that's what I'm talking about.
That's all we did.
And from a larger end of the spectrum too, I mean, I find that same confusion about people coming in and literally, I mean, I'll go in and they're like, look man, like I got 10 other guys coming in here and I only want to deal with you because you pretty much have everything I already need. And And that's usually the lesser educated people. Those are the people that they want simplicity over variety. You know, again, it's a double-edged sword because I go to some places and people are just like, I don't even want to talk to you, man. You got too much to talk about. One, and I won't name the bar. I went in the other day and I was like, hey, let's get some stuff in here. And they were like, oh, we went with the basic beer package. And I was like, what the hell is the basic beer package? Like, I didn't know there was an op. Like, do I have the deluxe beer package? So, again, you know, it just depends on the level of involvement from a lot of the buyers, because those people that are willing to put the time and effort in and make the difference in their tap list, it makes a big deal. But like you said, when you have 7, 10 different people coming in and you want to commit to somebody that you told them last week, oh, next week, man, next week, which this is why I pre-invoice things. When somebody tells me next week, I'm like, I want to remind myself. But still, that's what Frank said. It's all about that hustle and that follow-up. You know, those people that said they heard next week, they should have prioritized coming back and seeing you on the call day, because they should have come in and said, hey, we talked about this last week. You know, are we still doing this? I mean, yeah, not a lot of times. Sometimes the plans change. They're like, oh, you know, we had a slow week. We can't do this or that. But again, it harkens back to the hustle. And I have buyers who tell me, you know, the only reason I buy from you more so than this person is you're here every week at the same time. You know, when I have a problem, like I have another guy. Oh, I have a tap leaking. Tighten up my faucet. You know, like I go in and I have the wrench. Why not do it? The next time he's thinking of who do I call first, he's like, oh, Sam. I'm gonna call that guy because last time he was here on point. You know, so yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's a very complicated situation, obviously. You just gotta learn how to prioritize and like we were saying earlier, just like a consumer, you have to know the brands that you want to buy. You have to know the brands you want to support. You have to know where your money's going. Just like a consumer, your money's going these places as well.
All right, so I got a question that I want to first throw to Brent, and then I'll let anybody else follow up on it. How do special releases play a role? Like, look at something like the variants of Fire Iron or the variants of Whirligig versus Key Punch or Fin. Key Punch and Fin being available all the time, Whirligig and Fire Iron having these special variant one-day only bottle releases. How do those work out in your overall scheme and your market and everything like that?
That's a really good question. So that's something we are still learning ourselves. So we have an idea of how we want that to go and what our goals are for these special releases. And the consumer has their own idea of what these things are as well. So as far as our flagship releases go, or when new seasonals come out, like Key Punch or Chariot, our new Cherry Goes that just came out today, in cans. As far as that goes, we release it and there's not much fanfare. The goal for us for our variant releases is consumer experience. At the end of the day, like us as brewers love these variants, and that's why we choose the variants we choose, because we like to drink them, and we want you to drink them too, but you know, we'll probably do several that you're gonna like, and I'm probably gonna do one that I'm just gonna like, and you deal with it. So I'll drink it all, I don't care. But the overarching point is that we want people to come out to the brewery, we want them to come see the space, see what we're putting into everything, see these bottles that we literally did a keg or two of each variant, and then we hand bottled off of that, hand labeled that sucker, hand capped it, brought it over to the tap room, and then forced our bartenders to hand sell it. Like, it's a labor of love, and we want you guys to experience that with us, and that's what these variant releases are for us.
That's just local right there.
And I feel like, honestly, if you guys conveyed that message more so to the consumer, because when I go in, I mean, again, being somebody who sells beer, and people love these breweries, again, I know.
Why don't I have this beer on?
I didn't actually know that.
But if I go
that
in,
made me want it more.
If I go in on a Monday after any brewery, A, B, or C does some crazy release, my accounts that consider themselves my top accounts are like, why aren't I getting cases? Why aren't I getting this? Why aren't I getting that? It's like, because they did a brewery release. This isn't something that's being distributed, or if it's being distributed, it's going to the Jungle Gyms of the world, or the high volume Whole Foods, or high volume Kroger's, certain things like that. And yeah, I mean, it's again, it's conveying that message to people like, hey, if you want this beer, you need to get down to the brewery. Like, you know, and I honestly, when I see the Facebook posts about it, people say, hey, we're having a bottle release. It doesn't say, this is only, I mean, maybe it does in some cases, but generally say it's only here, you're not getting this anywhere else, you know, and then I have buyers in the market like texting me pictures of the actual release and saying, well, why haven't I gotten any yet? And it's like, they just released it today. So, you know, again, it's, like you said, I mean, telling people like how much like hand bottling, doing that small of an amount, like people don't understand that. And again, that harkens again back to education, you know.
Fortunately from our place, it's great because everybody gets down this way, so they'll go down that way. Fortunately, I might see a bottle or two if it gets on that way to taste it. And I think that's what's awesome is that we have literally, I mean, people in my bar, they're talking about it and they're like, yeah, we're heading down there to get some bottles. I'm like, sweet, it's right down there. I think that's a phenomenal piece. I like the local, easy thing. I think it's great you only have them there. I think that's the best thing ever. Don't put them out anywhere. Don't give them to anybody else. Not me, not anybody, you know, a keg, whatever, I'll take that. But the bottle, small plug for Lucky Turtle. All right, so, but as far as the bottles go, I think that kind of stuff is awesome. I think it's great when they have brewery-only releases. I think that actually helps in the bubble standpoint, even back to what we, you know, I know we've digressed, but even back to the original piece, I think that helps in the bubble concept is when the local breweries do it local. They're not worried about getting their stuff out up into wherever. When I say local for urban is North Side. It's not Finneytown, it's not Fairfield, it's not North College Hill, and those places are right next door to each other. Okay, I mean right there, as local next door gets. I think you keep it down at Urban Artifact, and you don't give a crap about anybody else getting it except to come down here and check your spot out. And I can send people down there, and it makes it easy for me. Done.
How much legs do you think that model really has? Because this is really kind of grown, and everyone's doing it now. And yes, my plug, we're gonna do our little special bottle release. Same thing. Kelly's gonna sit in the back there with a bear gun and hand bottle crap, and it's gonna be an awful experience. But you know. I'm never gonna do any of that.
I think the legs on that is about still, even again to the bubble talk, bro, it's a marathon, not a sprint, right? Okay, so we're trying to be here for a long time. I didn't open my place to close it in a year. I didn't open my place to close it in 5 years. You didn't open your place to close it in a couple years. No, we're on the marathon. I mean, you know, this isn't like we gotta get all this crap out and everybody's, no, man, we're trying to build a business and do things slow and build our stuff, make better product, do different things. Well, you guys got imaginations that even, sometimes will even test mine. That, blend crazy stuff. So, you know, and you guys are doing something different. You're making great product though, and it's solid, and that's all that matters. It doesn't matter if you're making a standard brown ale, you're doing something different, whatever. It's a great quality product, and that will bring the people in. You keep it local to your spot, and that's what matters in the big picture.
I just, you talked about being in for the, you know, not just for this year, but ongoing. One of the things that brings up from a bubble standpoint is succession planning. Now, I mean, you haven't been open a year yet here at Brink. It's a little early to be thinking about that, but once you're like, yeah, we're here, you need to start thinking about succession planning, and it may be 20 years down the road before you need to actually start implementing anything, but it needs to be thought of now, soon, because, and Dan, but you do need to think about it, or the brewery will go away, or, you know, I mean, that's part of the reason some of the breweries got purchased, is because they hadn't thought about succession planning, and it's time to get out. Oh, now what do I do? I mean, you know, if you look at Bell's as a great example. I mean, you know, Laura Bell is basically already partially taking over that business. Larry Bell's daughter. So, you know, you look at that, and there are a lot of breweries that are doing that well. You don't need to worry about it in your first year, but you do need to start worrying about it as you say, hey, we're here, really here for the long run.
Okay, so we got a question online from Mr. Eddie Chinney. I there's a lot of Jimmy fans in the house. And Jimmy fans, man. We gotta love every chimichanga, man.
Where are my wings?
We also have a demand for Thunderbird wings all of a sudden. Okay. All right, so Eddie wanted to ask anybody who wants to handle this, what do you consider your #1 threat to your individual businesses?
Death.
I gotta go to the bathroom on that note.
I thought you were a hitman. You are dead.
I mean, honestly, I don't know. I mean, like, one of the things I appreciate about the job I have is that we represent so many different brands. I mean, not that I want to see anybody go under, but you know, if 1 or 2 or 3 or something like that happen, which again, with proper business planning that we've been talking about, you know, people are making the right decisions about who we represent. Hopefully that doesn't become a thing. But you know, in the inevitable collapse, entropy, if you will, of anything, you know, if something like that happens on my end, you know, I got somebody else who brews IPAs. I got somebody else who brews whatever. So I mean, do I want to see that happen? No. You know, is it a threat when breweries close? Mildly, perhaps. Sorry. But I don't know. I honestly don't know what the #1 threat would be. I'd say another distributor somehow coaxes my brands away from me. That would be upsetting. But I don't know. I'm going to second Frank's opinion and just say death.
I'll field it. Us not making enough money. We can sum it up for that. But actually, I think probably, you know, we're new in the space. We don't even have our feet wet. We tried to study as much as we could, and we're all beer aficionados. We've been going to breweries for years and years, but for us personally, I think what we're trying to do is, are we going to get the neighborhood support, or are we going to just run cold, where we were the new big thing here for a little bit, and then the neighborhood find something else to do. You know, our whole agenda was not to go big or go home. It was, you know, we wanted to make good beer. We wanted to do a community space where people could come here and have fun. We weren't trying to take over the world. We just hope we can serve the community, and the community appreciates us and keeps coming back. And it's hard to say. I mean, you know, I hate to say I get a little analytical on this and look at the demographics of College Hill at times, and I say, no offense to anyone who's still here from College Hill, they all left, thankfully. Jerry's back. Oh wait, okay. It's a little bit older demographic than generally is a crap.
More experience.
Oh well, Jane, you know, more experience, but you know, are we going to stay relevant to if new people come into the neighborhood? Is the neighborhood going to grow? Is all this development that we really banked on going to take shape and do what we wanted to do? Because we bet on this neighborhood. And what we were trying to do from the get-go was to find a neighborhood that we could get on the ground floor, and I think it was said earlier that we could kind of be the catalyst for growth in that neighborhood. So now, is that growth going to happen in this neighborhood? That's the big thing for us. Yeah.
For us, I think it's fairly simple. It comes down to two things. The first is the government, city, state, and federal. They can just decide at any minute they want more of our money and raise corporate taxes, excise taxes, 1,000 other things, which could hurt us. So that could do it. The other thing is the Federal Reserve and the prime interest rate. I don't know if you guys follow that or not. Maybe you don't. But it's really low, and it's been low for a long time. But I don't know if you remember the 80s or not, but it was like 25% in the 80s. That could really screw over a lot of companies with a lot of loans if it just jumped back up to that, because it happens pretty quickly when it gets that high. So that's my two biggest concerns.
Thankfully, inflation is not driving it that way.
Yeah.
Who knows what they do?
And there's a bunch of other things too, but whatever.
Okay, is Chris Desmeadow? I see you back there. Come here, buddy. I know you got a question, so you can come up and ask your question. Hold on, Chris has got something while Chris walks up here.
I have a direct response to Brett's answer, and it's they can take our lives, but they can never take our freedom.
All right, Brink, hard. Keep your kilt on, buddy.
So before we get into any other questions there was a comment that Eddie had made earlier about SKUs reduction.
No, your question.
Okay.
Yeah, your question about...
Get it closer to your mouth.
So with blank slate closing, does that seem to be a sign that perhaps maybe the focus has become more on marketing and trends and fads as opposed to quality? Because everybody knows blank slate makes great beer. That was never an issue. And the other thing, do you think that consumer or that market growth has outpaced consumer education? Maybe that's part of it?
I feel like location had something to do with that maybe too. I mean, they were in an awkward spot. I mean, I've been down there a couple times. It's not like when you drive past the highway and you see, not that it's the same as it was, but the Mad Tree grain silo there or whatever. But I feel like location had maybe something to do with that. Like they say in any business, location, location, location. Lunken Airport isn't exactly a hot spot. Just saying.
The rules changed halfway through. When Scott opened, you could not have a tasting room. You couldn't have the tap room. And then the rules changed, and you're where you are. It's not cheap to pick up and move, especially when everything that you've done there has been basically your own blood and sweat.
Well, I think that's an appropriate point, and I think that maybe circles back to the grand concept of this conversation was the rule change with the tap room. So again, I love that Brett is on the Federal Reserve and down with the monetary aspects of what's driving the bubble. But when you look at the fact that lending has been cheap, anybody with a halfway decent business plan and they can scrape together a few pennies or go out and get some investors, they can go get a loan and they can go build a rather large brewery, and that becomes the very, and they can select, now they can select a place where they can build a nice tap room. Scott got in at a point where the conditions were not the same. The conditions were not the same as they are now. Like I credit him a lot to really opening my eyes about what we were facing. Everyone who knows Scott, he's brutally honest. I mean, so I'm trying to pick up that mantle as like the brutally honest asshole in craft brew. Like, I'll just tell you what I think, whatever.
We need more than one of those.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, I think location definitely played a part. But when you're a small brewery like him and you're trying to manage operations, you're trying to manage cash flow, you're trying to manage supply chain and all this, the marketing becomes a secondary factor. People always say that, oh, you just gotta market more. Like, on what? What's the best channels? What's gonna get the most reach? What's gonna get the most impact? Those are hard decisions, and when you have things that are operationally focused that you have to spend money on, you can't divert X amount of money on to going running a print ad or doing this and that.
But you can't ignore it.
You can't ignore it. And Facebook and social media is a great avenue, and it gives you a lot of reach for low dollars and a lot of impact, but that can only go so far.
I will say that marketing doesn't necessarily have to be print ads, social media, tchotchkes, bullcrap that people are going to hoard and then throw away, which is mind-blowing to me that people go to these festivals and take handfuls of crap and then throw it in the drunk drawer in the kitchen. But what is marketing is a sales rep, and it's getting someone out there pushing your product, meeting with these beer buyers, meeting with Jane, talking to them about their products, sending her a follow-up email with like, hey, this is what I got available this week. Do you want anything? It's going quick. It's doing that is marketing, and that's becoming more and more a big thing. Sam is a busy man. He needs to see, I don't know, 1,000 accounts a day. So if he has 1,000 accounts a day, he's probably got 10 seconds at each account that he can go to. He doesn't have time to sell our whirligig peanut butter mocha horseshit stout.
Wait, I need that. I haven't checked that in yet.
Real road apples. Harvested ourselves. He doesn't have time to explain, in 5 minutes about how great this beer is and how new it is. He he's got time to get there, take their order, maybe hit a couple key things, and then get moving on. But that's where our sales reps come into play. That's where our literature comes into play. And that to me is marketing. That's the spend that is crucial these days. That's something that, God, I love Scott and I love his beer, but he was an operations focused guy and he didn't want to make that investment. That's true. And it's gonna bite anyone who does that as well.
And marketing isn't a thing that happens outside of your tap room. Like, marketing is a thing that happens in here first, actually. Like, you need to make the connections as local businesses, not as breweries, as local businesses to your communities. That's the key to, like, I mean, if you want to like draw on, you know, getting fundraisers in here, getting groups to come in here, establishing regular clientele, it's literally it all happens here. It doesn't necessarily happen out at off-premise accounts or at on-premise accounts. It starts here. You establish your culture here, and you move that out into the market.
Yeah, I totally second that, and that's how we try to operate, and that's because we don't have budgets to do anything else. But
that's the best place to start that. I mean, if you don't have the budget to get it out there, word of mouth out of your tap room is the best way to do it.
Okay, since Frank is coming back right now, we have a question from the internet. Eric, I'm not going to try your last name. What is your opinion on flights? Is it a way to try a crap that just broke?
Is it a way to do what?
to try and crap that.
Yeah, it was like a, what is your opinion on flights? Is it a way to try a variety of beers, but many styles deserve a full pint, and also the palate may get confused? Basically, what are your thoughts on flights? Is it good or not for the industry?
So I think flights, are great for breweries in a certain standpoint because you have a variety of beers, and so you only have your beers, and it is what it is. I don't personally do flights. I have 4-ounce pours, and you can fly as high as you want. If you want to get 23 beers in a 4-ounce pours, well then knock yourself out, okay? I don't have a special little holder or some kind of predetermined path of price or anything to do it with. You get 4-ounce pours. All my prices are even pricing, so that's the way I do it. So you're going to pay the same for the 4 ounces you pay for the 16 ounces you pay for the 8 ounce within context. So I decided not, for my business, I decided not to do flights. I don't have a flight paddle. I don't have to maintain that. My bartenders don't have to do crap. You want a 4-ounce pours? Knock yourself out, okay? I have nothing wrong with flights. That's a choice. So, if you want to try 4 ounces, I hope that the brewery or bar that you're in offers a 4-ounce pour for you to taste them and judge what you like or don't like, because there's a ton of new crap out there. You don't want to spend all your dollars on one, beer that you don't like. Absolutely. I think everybody here, within context, even some of our folks in the audience, all the places that I know here do some kind of smaller pour, and you can do one or do a flight. That's your choice. You're the consumer. Knock yourself out with that, and you should do that. I do an 8-ounce pour even in between there because I really like a beer, and if I'm going to talk about a beer, I need 8 ounces of it. 4 ounces, hey, off flavors, maybe, sure, whatever, but 8-ounce pour, then I'll talk about a beer and really talk intelligently about it. But great to taste. I think flights are fine. Pick 1, pick 12, who cares?
How about real quick from Roxanne, being the credential you are, flights, do you get enough of the sample of the beer to really know what's going on with that?
In general, yeah, you get enough to know which ones you're going to like, if there's something wrong with the beer or something like that. What you don't get is, I'll use Goza as an example, not any one of yours necessarily, but one of the things that's really important in a beer are certain balances. And for me, I hop fatigue really easy. I can do a 4-ounce pour of almost anything. Ask me to do a full pint, and that's a different story. A Goza is a great example where you have something that's sour and salty and maybe some fruit flavor and things like that in it too. If the sour and salt aren't balanced right, it may still taste great in that 4-ounce pour, but then I can't finish a pint of it. So I think it gives you a good, if it's too salty, my stomach doesn't like it, right? But I think that there are some things that you can get a good idea of whether you want to try, get a higher quantity of something or not, or get a feel for what a brewery's like. But you're right, once you get to 8 ounces is really where you are as far as, I'm going to do more, like another one of these beers. That's going to be, that 8 ounce point is where you can really make a decision on, I'm going to drink this the rest of the night. And there are times when I'll want to do samplers if it's a place I'm not familiar with. If it's a place I'm familiar with, or they just have certain styles that I know I'm attracted to, I'm probably not going to do samplers. I'm probably going to go straight to the styles.
Okay, so I think Shane wanted to say something.
So, my personal experience, I feel like, depending on the ABV level, that lights are useless. You don't get the full experience of a beer, top to bottom, unless you get at least 16 ounces either way. So I want to say my catchphrase here, which is, what would John Wayne do? John Wayne never ordered a 4-ounce beer.
All right. So we got to start to wrap it up a little bit. So I know we got off track from the bubble, and we had a fantastic conversation about all kinds of shit. But just want to pass it back around to everybody on the panel. If everybody can take a few seconds and kind of say yes bubble, no bubble, and like 2 sentences on yes or no or why. All right?
I'm solidly no bubble. And the only reason for that is that I believe that there's marketing opportunity to expand the base of craft beer drinkers. And if we were at 40 to 50% market share, I would say a bubble big time. But at 15 to 20, I don't think so.
I would say no bubble, but you have to have a good product, you have to have a good business model, you have to be responsive. Because there will be failures. Whether there's a bubble or not, there will be failures for whatever reason. But I don't think we're in a bubble at this point.
I'm really going to basically agree with that. I think that, don't confuse the bubble with businesses that don't do well, businesses that don't succeed. Look at the businesses that are succeeding, and you can see that means that there's not a bubble, that means there's solid businesses out there that have got their stuff together and are putting out a good product.
I'm going to keep it short and sweet and just say 50-50, I don't know, but leaning much more toward no bubble. I mean, like I said, the growth, every time I see a new brand come into the state, they all seem to do well, so, I mean, at least well on some level. Not all of them blow up and become the next big thing, but they sell. They got a quality product. You're going to find, I mean, what do they say? What is it, 15% of consumers consume 80% of that product that they enjoy. So, I mean, all you got to wait, with a market like this, what is it, 4 million people, 3.5 million people in the Cincinnati metropolitan area? And I think it's 3.5. Anyway, I'm including like Northern Kentucky, like all that stuff. Exactly. But I don't know what the seating capacity is in here, but I'm pretty sure that there's plenty of people to go around for the product. We basically, all these brewers need to bring their A game. So, I'd say I'll go with no bubble. I'm going to lean with everybody else.
I'm going to go BuzzFeed on this and say nationally and regionally, there's a fucking bubble.
Talking Cincinnati, I just talked about
Now, talking Cincinnati, locally, there's never going to be a bubble anywhere locally. No one ever talks about restaurant bubbles. There ain't no local craft brewery bubble. There never will be. Get over that. There's no bar bubble. There's no nothing bubble like that. There's no park bubble. We got too many parks. Stop at the parks. And even nationally and regionally, it's more going to be a market correction than an actual bubble. But let's say bubble for fun. Bubble.
All right, so just to be somewhat contrarian, I gotta say that I don't think there's a bubble. I think there's market saturation or market correction coming eventually. For sure. So not a bubble that's going to burst and ruin the entire industry and make us all drink industrial light macro waters for the end of our days.
People are going to keep drinking.
All the craft breweries.
I'm going to second these two guys here. I think there's a distinction between market saturation in certain areas and a bubble per se. I think there are elements of bubbles going on. I think, again, not to keep recycling that, but there are some people that are not right-sizing, and, you know, if they fail, does that mean it's a bubble? I don't know. I think there's elements that are a bubble, and there are elements that are oversaturation, but I don't expect a big bloodletting, and exactly what Brett said, it's not gonna be big. We're just gonna have to fucking drink Stroh's Light. So, you know, we'll be all right.
All right, so we want to get a little audience participation right now. Just by a show of applause, is there a bubble? All right, so again, show of applause, is there no bubble? I'm going to say that's pretty clear that the audience thinks there's no bubble. All right, everybody, thank you for coming out tonight.
One more thing.
Yeah.
We have a lot of brewery people here tonight. Can we introduce them?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to say thank you to everybody here for coming out. I know we've got Dan Listerman from Listerman Brewing Company who came out. Randy from Woody Cats back there. We've got the guys from Fibonacci. We've got 2 out of 3 guys from Swine City here. We got our third is Urban Artifact. We've got Mark from Platform. We've got a whole bunch of guys from Brink. We've got that dude from AB. Again, if you have tomatoes.
Marty's Thompson Vines over here from local bottle shop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Cheers for the Brew Bus, Mike Stokes. Many shout outs for Charlie Moore back here who hopped in to man the mixing board for us after technical difficulties. Please go follow the Charlie Tonic Hour and support him and his projects. Go to Girl Cinema, Overlook Lodge, Tokyo Kitty, Video Archive, help him out.
Unfortunately, we're not talking about alcohol or liquor because we would have a good old time.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have to do a liquor panel soon to get him involved. Also, if you want to hear more from Charlie, check out Brew Minds. We did a video with them last night. Many thanks to Justin from the OCBA, Roxanne from the BA, Frank from the Turtles, Sam from Cavalier, Brett here from Urban Artifact, Andy and everybody else at Brink for hosting us and letting us drink some amazing beer and take up some of their space. And thank you everybody for showing up. It was a great time.